All right, so this little tutorial will be super easy, super quick description on how to make an easy pocket that's just a flap or a blind pocket. So I've cut out my my pleather, my vegan leather. It does have a pattern on it, and this type of material sometimes can show pinholes or needle holes. So I'm really careful when I work with it to get it right the first time if I can. But even when I pin it, there's this little pattern in here, so I put the pins through that so that it won't show on the face of this, because this is what my pirate wants to be the outside of the flap, because it coordinates with the other fabric. It's just going to be fun. So anyway, I'm going to pin this and sew this, and then I'll show you how to put it onto the garment. Okay, so now I have sewn the pocket, right sides together. I should say the pocket flap. And I'm going to turn it inside out. But before I do that, I wanted to mention that I notched along this edge. You probably won't be able to see it. But in here, I trimmed a little bit and then I notched so that when it gets turned inside out, if there's any extra bulk in the fabric, it'll overlap each other instead of puckering and creating bulk that way. So that just creates a smoother flow inside of the pocket flap that will hopefully reduce any visual bulk. And again, I hope I don't have to press this. I am going to stop this for just a hot second and baste the top edge of this pocket, because this is very slick fabric and it does slide across itself. I want to make sure I give myself the best shot I can for putting it on square onto the front of this garment. You know, it's easier to do it right the first time than to redo it 10 times if I can, and that's one way I can ensure a better chance. So okay, this is laying pretty flat. I'm pretty happy with that. So that's going to be the front, and then the underside will be the matching to the garment. But I'm going to run and baste it just to make sure that it stays nice and flat. And then I'm going to show you how to place it, because of course there's no line on your fabric that you bought. How do you get it to look nice, especially when you're pinning it wrong side, so you've got to pull it and do some funky things to make it look right when you're finished, but it's kind of awkward to pin and sew in the meantime. So that's that. I'll be right back. Okay, so that really didn't take long. I'm going to now pin it. This is the right side, so I'm going to flip it over and pin with the side I want facing out towards the right side of the fabric and going up. I'm a lefty, but I still think it would go that way for righties, because once you sew it and you flip it over, you want that to come down towards the front of your garment. So I made the marks when I cut the pattern pieces out, and I made the little notches, and I put the dots on. They are marked on the wrong side, so this is the alignment of where the pattern is supposed to go, but I put pins here so that I could see it when I am looking at it from the front. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin the corners, and then I'll probably take those pins out because it gets to be too much pinning. And I did add an element of difficulty to this that may be different from what you're having. Because of the vinyl, I don't want to put a lot of pins through this pocket. And it also shifts like crazy. But what it is nice about this, because I think it's stiff enough, I did not bother to put on an interfacing, which is actually what this pattern calls for. I can show you how to use interfacing in one of the future steps. We're going to still need some, but not as much, because I've used this wacky fabric at my pirate's behest. Arg. So anyhow, I'm going to make what I feel like is a nice pleasing shape for how I want my pocket to go, like a slight arc. And then, without scratching my nice table, but it has good light, I'm going to pin it. And then I'm just going to pin once in each middle part here, just so that I can run the sewing machine along here and not have this fabric puckering or shifting underneath. I want it to be a nice smooth line, not only on the pocket but also on the garment, so that when I take it out of the machine it just looks nice and smooth, and once I flip it over there's no weird puckers or buckles or pinches and tucks, things like that. So some things I don't worry about pinning. This I'm going to pin nicely, and and still cross my fingers, because this this shifty fabric of the pleather vinyl, whatever it is, and the upholstery fabric is a little stretchy and weird too. It just makes an added challenge, but I'm up for it. I've had my caffeine. I'm gonna go sew. I'll be back. Okay. So, my evil plan worked. I got the pocket on nice and straight the first time. Well, not straight, but it's not supposed to be. Nicely curved and nicely placed. So I've already finished the other side and pinned it to the back. The next step on this puppy is the shoulder seams. And again, marking that pattern when I cut it out made it so much easier. I'm putting the right sides together. And I'm looking for the big dots that I made. So I had it right the first time, actually. That's the right side together, the wrong side out. There's a big dot I made here. Yes, I used a Sharpie, because what else is going to show up on this? And I really don't care if it washes out. It's on the inside of a garment that's not likely to need washing, hopefully, depending on how much swashbuckling we do. So, right through that, the dot on both pieces means that I know this is in the correct alignment for the way this pattern is supposed to lay and sit on the body. So when I do that, I don't even care if that pin is near the hem, as long as I don't sew through the pin. That's really my objective. It's there to tell me where I am for the rest of the alignment of this piece as I sew it front to back at the shoulder here. It's getting exciting. All of a sudden, this is going to look like a garment. I hope. Not a sackcloth. So anyhow, again, I'm pinning it up nicely so that I can run this seam. And then the next step for me will be to run the seam underneath the arm. And after that, then we're going to be putting in the godets or however they are pronounced. Perhaps I'll investigate. Okay, so I finished putting the front and back pieces together, and now I get to put in I looked it up, godets or godets. Two possible pronunciations, neither of which was my natural inclination. So, you know, I got to learn something new every day. That might be the thing. Hopefully not the only thing for today. So, again, I'm just going to put these in right sides together. This is going to have a lot of volume to it, which is going to be really fun and swashbuckly. And I'm just going to pin them in, looking for the notches, which are farther along. I do kind of want to match the curvature of the bottom edge and the straight line of the hem I'm going to be sewing. I haven't even figured out, I've read the pattern a couple times, how the bottom edge of this is going to be finished, if it's hemmed or if it's got bias tape or some other nifty trick, but I still want it to be an easy go when I get to it. Oh, my helper is here. Hi, Tilly. Maybe she'll come so you can see her. So when I cut these, again, I look for the notches. Here's notches. Buenos notches. Ha 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 ha. I think I'm getting slap happy, and it's so early on in the project. So anyhow, there's the notches. I'm just going to pin along and sew away. There's the notch. But that lets me figure out how to work in the fabric. If it seems like one side is a little bit longer than the other, it gives me a chance and a nice long run to work it in. So again, there's no puckering. Seems like that side's a little longer. I'm more concerned about what's happening at the top. Here she comes. Hi, Boo. Hello, Miss Helper. Are you going to sit on it, play with it, or block my light? You have choices. You do. Just don't stick yourself on the pits. Matilda, you are something else. You were asleep. You were taking your little pretty nap. I know, such a good kitty. So just pinning it along, and again, I love pinning because then I know I've got it right while I'm not making it semi-permanent. I'm not saying sewing it's permanent, but it's so much easier not to have to get the seam ripper out and redo it and potentially damage your fabric, or just spend the time doing that. So that's why I like to pin it up nice. So then I know it's sitting right. I can flip it over and check, make sure the right sides are together, which they are. But if I were, concerned, then I would know for sure. I would have a way of checking it. There's my notch. Super easy. Again, down to the edge where I'm just going to make sure these are running sort of in the same way along the bottom edge as well as the edge I'm going to hem together, because that way when I sew it and it lays flat, it'll look like it might have, it's not, but it will look like it might have been a continuous piece of fabric with the same line and flow and all that good stuff. So I will finish pinning and sewing, and then I don't know what's next. I'm afraid and also excited that it might be sleeves. Since I have a deadline, I'm like, ooh, I gotta know what's next. Who has time for lunch? Nope, not today. Gotta get it done. Although I really should eat. So, one more pin right in here. Then there's this little weird spot where it all comes together with the two pieces of the jacket and all that good stuff where it's actually sewn up here. I'm just going to put a couple extra pins. I don't know if you can really see it. I'm sorry, the camera angle might not be great for that. But I'm just going to put a couple extra pins up here to make sure everything is lying flat. So when I go to sew it, my arm is probably blocking it. When I go to sew it, then it, it will close up nice and look like a tidy pleat and not some weirdness. So we'll on to that.